Richmond, north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Living in
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes.
In sunshine and rainbows, it isn't
Definitely a thing for just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars. Welcome to the dungeon, Dan Cahill.
Thanks, Gary.
Hey, it's good to have you back, and it's been quite a while, but you've been busy since last time I talked to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I think the last time I did a podcast with you was back in 2021. And that
That's
was
about right.
That's when I first became a regional franchisor after finishing up being a franchisee pretty much. Yeah, it's been really, really good. So I suppose I'd like to share what's been going on and you can give everyone a bit of an update.
Well, it's there's been a lot of changes in that time, and I know I've reached out and had a couple of chats with you along the way, but you have, I mean, back before when we first spoke, you had already proved that the gym's franchisee model can be hugely successful if you're willing to grind and do some hard work. And your history there, we touched on back then, so go back and look up the original episode. It's actually available. I've made all of my old episodes available online now, so everyone can look them up. Go back and listen to it. But you started very humbly, left a Macca's job.
That's correct, yeah.
And
Yes.
you built up to an impressive income straight off the bat.
Yeah, it was, first week in was $3,600. So I was pretty happy with that. With that said, I was doing 7 days a week, so I had an edge that not a lot of people were, were willing to go do, which was I was willing to work a lot more hours from the very start. So
Yeah.
I did have a good income. I was quite happy with it.
And not everyone needs to do 7 days a week to be successful, but you certainly, like you say, doing 7 days a week, you hit some impressive numbers.
That's correct, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, Dan, once you became the franchisor, it wasn't long after that happened that I interviewed you. That was for North Queensland?
That was for the Brisbane region. So that had Brisbane North, Ipswich and Toowoomba included in it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I suppose from there on, I was just like, well, how do I make this work? I wasn't used to doing a desk job or anything like that, but I used my experience of being a franchisee to really, prop me up and help me out with that role.
I want to say a massive thank you to those who have supported me with the new Catch Pro discount code. In appreciation, I'm offering a prize for one lucky Catch Pro customer before the end of the year. If you live in Australia and purchase from Catch Pro with the discount code LawnStars10, in all caps, for those who have already done so and up until the 15th of December, this is a real and significant prize, unlike some booby traps I've heard of recently. It is a Catch Pro product worth over $500, so get cracking with your LawnStars10 code on the Catch Pro online shop, and thank you for your support.
I became a franchisor. I spoke to you, and I think at the time, our last podcast, I was in Brisbane, and it was a phone call podcast that I did with you. But I came into it with the mindset of I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can, and every moment I possibly can, I'm going to put towards this. And It was that same strategy I used when I was a franchisee, which was if there's something in front of me that needs to get done, don't delay, don't wait, just get it done, pump it out. And as soon as that's done, find something else to be able to do that's going to improve your business. And so that's what I did as a franchisee, and I figured, well, it worked very, very well as a franchisee, so let's try it as a franchisor. So that's what I would do. So anything that was in front of me that needed to be done, I would get it done straight away. So I'd call all my franchisees at the start of the week, usually on a Monday and Tuesday, speak to them. I'd get anything done for, compliance and deal with complaints and that sort of thing. And then I'd be sitting on what can I do to improve this business? And so you just sit there and you'd write down like thoughts and just ideas, which was, I went through, this took me a couple of weeks, but I went and called up every single trailer manufacturer in Queensland at that point to try and find someone that would build the exact type of trailer I wanted them to build, paint it, put the stickers on and do it for the price that I wanted as well. So I spent quite a fair bit of time doing that. I spent a fair bit of time going through the backlists of all the people that had previously inquired about a franchise. And then I spent time just with every single franchisee, just teaching them one by one how to build their mowing business. So figuring out where they were, teaching them how to build up mowing rounds, and then trying to get them to employees, just so that we can get more of our work service. Because that's always been a bit of an issue, is that we can't get our work serviced. So if a franchisee brings on employees, then you've got a much better chance of getting more of that work done. So I spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, now that's interesting, because a lot of the gym's franchisees are running solo. So to get more of them having employees, like you say, it'll reduce the amount of unserviced leads that gyms has and make more profitable franchisees.
That's correct, yeah. So, I mean, Jim always said to me, because I suppose he's been a mentor to me, because the region I bought was 50-50 with Jim, so, which was the first time he ever gone 50-50 with anyone. But because he was my partner in the business, I would speak to him very regularly, and he would teach me about, how to do the role and what he expected. And one thing he always said to me was, the more trailers on the road, the more work will come through. And so I didn't know how to prove that, and I didn't know if he could prove it to me or anything like that, but he was absolutely adamant on it. And so years down the track, I ended up learning that for myself. I started with Ipswich. I think I had, one, maybe two franchisees in that sort of vicinity. So that might have been someone in Ipswich or, around Ripley, somewhere around there. I ended up growing that to the point where I think we had like 15 or 16 franchisees. And the reason was because more trailers I would put on, you would have more of an advertising spend, but also the trailers are like mobile billboards, so they would bring clients in more than the advertising would. And so I did that very well with Ipswich, and later on when I went and bought more regions, I did the exact same thing with other regions. So I did it with Cairns up in North Queensland, Darwin in Northern Territory, and so I was able to learn that the more trailers you're bringing on, the more work that's going to come around. So but it's all about making sure that you have steady growth. You don't just smash it and just put up 10 people in there at one time. You've got to just slowly grow. And so you get them, each franchisee, when you bring them on, you get them to build up that mowing round first, make sure they've got that full schedule, and then you go, right, now that we're at this point, we're feeling pretty comfortable, let's bring someone else on as well.
I want to distract you with a slight rabbit hole here, because you keep on mentioning the trailers. So the average gym's trailer people will recognise fairly easily, but not all gym's trailers will be the same, right?
That's correct, yeah. They can custom make the trailer, but they do need to make sure that they have the correct green colour code, and also the sticker placement is correct as well for our gym's mowing stickers.
So the average gym's trailer will have room for a push mower, or typically a Honda, and
Honda, yeah. So
and then it'll have room for storing your grass clippings, or possibly for fitting a ride on in. So
the ones that I've got made, and I've now got this all around Australia that they get made like this, but they're usually a 7x5 back section of the trailer, and instead of having a door for the tailgate or anything like that, it's just a drop-down ride-on ramp that we have. We'll have the mower cage up the front, so it's usually an enclosed one, so it's sheet metal, and you can fit two push mowers in there. They're wide enough to be able to easily fit your Honda HRU 216 or any other 21-inch. But you might struggle with the 30-inch Toro. I don't recommend getting one of those and putting them in a gym's mowing trailer unless you can. The passenger side has the big wide toolbox which holds the brush cutters, and you've also got a toolbox on the driver's side which holds the hedge trimmer or chainsaw or smaller gear. So that's standard sort of, that's your standard sort of gym's mowing trailer, but you can get them custom made. Like I've seen some guys that they'll get tippers, they'll get tandems, they'll get trailers that are the size of caravans. I mean, you could probably live in them. They're that big.
So if you're going to do a lot of acreage, you probably need to get a bigger trailer. And if you want to do a really tight inner city run, you could go down the path of having a van. Or do any of the gyms guys do a ute on its own?
Yeah, plenty of them do a ute on its own. The vans are really, really popular, especially around Sydney, Newcastle sort of area.
That's where I am.
So gyms mowing vans are very, very popular around that area. Up north, trailers are very, very popular. I think the higher you go up in Queensland, the bigger the trailers tend to get, just because you've got more palm and stuff like that to take away. But the closer you get to Brisbane City, so anywhere from like, I don't know, let's say Stafford or Aspley down, you'll tend to notice that the trailers become smaller, or they don't have a trailer, they just have a Jim's Mowing ute or a van set up. Just to get through some of the the tighter city streets.
So I apologise for that rabbit hole, but I think it's really interesting for people to know the differences between trailer sizes or just going trailerless altogether. But back to the growing your franchisorship, which is where you were talking about getting the amount of trailers on the road increased and doing it in a methodical way rather than just dumping 10 new franchisees into one location. You're building it slowly and methodically. So, and in the early days, that was the Brisbane area.
Yeah. So what I had to teach them, and this is, it's the same way that I built up my mowing rounds when I was a franchisee. For anyone that listened to the last podcast I did, you would know that I had 6 mowing rounds going, and I built up, you've usually got 2 different types of mowing rounds. So you've got your push mowing rounds and you've got your ride-on mowing rounds. So with your push mowing rounds, you usually use your ute, no worries at all. You don't necessarily need a trailer unless you're doing once-off jobs. And with your ride-on mowing round, obviously you need to have a trailer. So I had push mowing rounds, and that's just because I felt a lot more comfortable with having my employees use the push mowers instead of a ride-on. They didn't know how to reverse trailers. I didn't want to go to the effort to be able to teach them how to do it. It was a lot simpler just to be able to do push mowing rounds. Plus the area that I was in, most of the properties were under 600 to 700 square meters, so push mowers would get the job done pretty efficiently as well. So, but I would teach my my franchisees from the very start. As soon as they'd start, I'd go, right, now let's focus on getting you really busy and booking those first 4 weeks straight away. So I want to see franchisees earning $700 per day or more. That's the expectation on my end. So I would usually get them to start off by taking on garden cleanup jobs. And the reason is because garden cleanup are probably one of the better paying jobs that you can do. And you've got multiple services that you'll complete at one property. So when you go to a garden cleanup, you'll do lawn mowing, you'll do weeding, hedging, pruning. You might even do a bit of chainsawing, that sort of thing. Spreading.
This is sort of similar to what Tim, the lawnmower man, does when he's doing a Free Mow Friday, I guess. Yeah,
pretty similar to what he does. Yeah, so basically you just, the place really needs a tidy up, and you're willing to do everything there that needs to be done, fixing up the garden and everything to get it into shape. Yep. And so the average sort of job for a garden cleanup, if you're one person, is usually about 2 days. You'll have your jobs that'll take you a day or half a day, every now and then you'll have some jobs that are really big or really, wild, and they'll take you a week. But on average, it's usually about 2 days that one of those garden cleanups will take you. So, and they're pretty paying as well. So, our franchisees, from garden cleanups, depending on the job, can earn, $1,000 to $1,500 per day by themselves doing that sort of work. So, because if you were to start up and just go, right, I'm just going to do lawn mowing, start a brand new business and just do lawn mowing, you'd have to go quote 40 or 50 jobs in your first week, and then you'd have to go do those jobs as well. It's not viable. Where if you start up doing garden cleanups, you quote 2 or 3 jobs, you booked out for a whole week straight away, and then you're making good money straight away. Once we see the first 4 weeks booked in, then we go, right, now it's time for you to really focus and hammer down on building up that mowing round. So we figure out if they want to build up a push mowing round or a ride-on mowing round. A lot of guys will do like a mixture of both. So ride-on mowing rounds tend to pay much better than push mowing rounds. But if you're doing a mixture of both, then you're going to be somewhere in between. And a ride-on mowing round, I'd expect any contractor really to be able to earn about $1,000 per day, if not more, from a pure ride-on mowing round. But if you've got a mixture, then it'd be somewhere in between those 2 figures. And so that's what I'm teaching them. And then once they build up that round, and obviously they take on the garden cleanups and the once-off jobs and all that, and then the more and more regular clients they build on each week, the less and less of those garden cleanups and once-off hedging jobs and gutter cleaning jobs they'll need to take on until they get to the point where their schedule is completely full. And from there on, I go, right, now do you want to bring on an employee or a subby to be able to look after this round for you, or do you want to look after it yourself? And if they do want to get someone to look after it, then they can put someone on and then focus their efforts and time towards building up the next mowing round. So they take on those once-off jobs and those garden cleanups again, They convert their customers, and then they have that next mowing round built up, and they can do it over and over and over again. So that's what it was that I was teaching these franchisees how to do.
Awesome. Now I'm going to take us down another rabbit hole. We want to come back to how you've built the franchisorship that you're building, but you mentioned a couple of things there that I like to make sure I focus on, because my listeners are typically starting a business or thinking about starting a business. Some of them been in business for a long time too, but if people are starting a business and they just heard a couple of numbers you're talking about, $700 a day, $1,000 a day, sometimes more than $1,000 a day. One of the things to touch on there is the ride-on round. Now, if you are running a round that has a ride-on mower, you could be the cowboy that has the John Deere 110. That's the basic tractor-style mower. Good mower, but it is a residential quality tractor mower, meaning that it's not really built for being run 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And then you could have a nice but still residential quality zero turn, or you can go through to the small commercial zero turns and standards and the larger acreage mowers that are all commercial quality. They're capable of doing sort of 2, 3, even up to 5,000 hours on those machines, and their ground speed and their efficiency goes way up as well. So if you start with, like I did, a old Dixon 42-inch zero turn, yes, it was productive and it helped me to do some good days, but it was running about half the ground speed of a comparable commercial unit.
Yeah, and so that's where you've got to be careful with, the type of engine that you've got on your ride-on as well. I mean, obviously, first of all, you've got to find out if you're buying a commercial grade or a residential grade, because if you're buying a residential grade, it means that if you are going to be doing bigger properties and you're going to be doing longer hours, you're going to have a lot more problems, and it's probably going to cost you a lot more in the long run anyways. Where if you buy a commercial, then you're going to have less problems. But I think the horsepower of the engine and the size of the engine is really important when considering what ride-on to buy. I have a bit of a rule of thumb, and it's not perfect, but it's the best I've got so far. If anyone wants to critique it or give me any improvements, please let me know. But the rule of thumb for me is that whatever the size of the deck of the ride-on mower, you want to have the horsepower of the engine to be at least half, if not more. So if you've got a 42-inch deck, you have a 21 horsepower engine or more. So if you've got that, then you go, right, that'll get me through most stuff. I'll be able to do some slashing jobs, and I won't have to just stick to doing residentials and go really slow with it as well. So that's like a ballpark sort of figure for me. But that's
And I'm breaking that rule really hard at the moment, but my old 42-inch was a Walker B series. It had 23 horsepower, so yeah, it fit the rule really nicely. My two stand-on mowers that I'm using at the moment, the 61-inch has 37 horsepower, so it's over that. The 42-inch Standard I has 19 horsepower, so it's under that. And not hugely, but in saying that, there's a couple of variables that make a big difference as to how efficient those motors run on those size decks, and they both work really well. So,
it's definitely not a perfect calculation. It's there's so many different things to be able to consider.
Yeah,
like
it's a rough rule guide.
Yeah, it's a very rough rule, but I suppose it sort of helps someone, especially when they're new, trying to figure it out and go, right, I have no idea at all, because I had a Cox. What was it? I had a 42-inch and it had like a 15 horsepower engine or something like that. It was a 0 to I thought, geez, the bigger this ride-on is, the better it's going to cut, but I didn't actually realise. And it was useless to me. And so I was just like, I've just spent all this money for no reason. So, yeah, but it also depends on what type of jobs you're doing as well. So with your ride-on round, you might go do your acreage and your commercial contracts and your large residential jobs. And you'll find that you need there's a perfect ride-on for each of those, and it may not be the exact same ride-on. So
yeah, there's another couple of rules that I like to apply, and again they're generalised rules. But when I look at the gyms network, I have a lot of things to say about the gyms network. I'm very positive and pro recommending people join up to a franchise, and the gyms network is the most well recognised franchise around the world. I was talking to somebody just a couple of weeks ago who's looking at joining up, so I might have to ask you for commission on that one. But the rules that I think are really relevant, you mentioned $700 a day and then $1,000 a day, right? For people that are coming from a workplace where they're an employee and they hear numbers like this, the temptation to think that that's all their money is really big. And the temptation to, even for us as employers or business owners, is to sort of brag about how much we might do. What I've talked about in my podcast many times is when I left my old job, I was earning about $50,000 a year, and I figured if I do $50,000 a year in my lawn care business, now this is 15 years ago, so don't give me a hard time for $50,000 a year. Back then it was okay-ish. But my comparison was, in the job I had tax to pay, about $9,000, $8,000 or $9,000 in tax, and I had vehicle expenses to get to and from work, uniform, mobile phone. I was living off about $32,000 to $34,000 a year out of that $50,000 a year income. And I figured it would be similar with my lawn mowing business. If I was turning over $50,000, the expenses come out, and it would be somewhere similar. And I hoped it would be accurate, and it turned out to be a pretty good rule of thumb. But when I got caught out was when I put on an employee. And I know with gyms, there's a lot of franchises that don't have employees. So they might look at those numbers and go, oh, yeah, that's great. And then they go to put on an employee and realise that the ratios that you're working on when you're just using that rule of thumb don't work very well. So the other rule of thumb that I think is really fantastic is to go, okay, when you're running a lawn care, gardening, horticultural business, the rule of thirds is really good. And I think this is important to break down an understanding of the accounting that goes into a business. Now, the rule of thirds is, again, it's a generalisation and it's not going to be an exact fit. So don't come at me when you go and say, oh, it's not 33%, it's 31% and 29%. So the rule of thirds works like this. If you charge out $100, and some of us might charge out $100 an hour, some of us might be at $150 an hour, but just work off the $100. If you charge $100, $33 goes out in insurance and fuel and maintenance of equipment and buying new equipment and whatever else. That's your expenses, 33% or 1/3. The next third is for wages. And you might go, well, I'm the only employee or I'm a solo person. Still, use it, because otherwise you get caught out when you do have to put on an employee. So 1/3 in wages, $33, right? And then the other third should be your profit. Now, if you don't acknowledge that you need profit, what you end up doing is you just count your wages as profit. And then when you put on an employee, you don't have any profit because you're paying all of it out in wages.
Yeah. I mean, I've never really taken too much of a look into the rule of thirds. But I mean, I suppose to some regard it makes sense. I mean, everyone's profit is different because it depends on if that week you're feeling like you want to go buy, a new HRU 216 or, as soon as you go buy a bit of equipment, that's going to eat into your profits. It depends on, if you're going to fill up with 98 instead of 91 or, so there's so many different variables. But I suppose if you're working off the averages, it'd probably be pretty close. I mean, for me, my employees back in the day were probably on about, I think it was $30 per hour. Obviously, if they earned me more money, then I'd pay them more. So generally, if someone earned me about an extra $100 per day, then I'd pay them an extra $5 per hour. That's how I worked it out. So my employees were making me $700 per day doing a push mowing round, and I'd pay them $30 an hour, which I thought was pretty good. But when you take into consideration the petrol, brush cutter line, 2-stroke oil, work cover insurance, GST, income tax, those sorts of things, it's probably pretty close to what I would have been earning from each employee looking after that round, from that rule of thirds. As I said, I don't think it's a perfect fit, but it probably would have been around that sort of 33% mark or
I think the rule is great if you use it as a generalisation, because it makes you start thinking about how much money you need to make. And if you go, okay, I can rationalise that that's not exact and that I need to account for more expenses outside of wages, so it might be more on that third and less on the wages, and you might go, I can do less than 33% profit. I'm happy with 15% profit. You can work it out, and you might adjust these things as you go. I'm going to suggest that if you're not aiming for at least 30% profit, then when you do put on employees, you're going to struggle. And the reason you'll struggle is because you are going to be doing about 10 jobs as the owner of the business, and they range from being the CEO, say that tongue-in-cheek, being the admin, the HR, the maintenance of the equipment, all the different jobs that you got to do, the marketing, everything you do as the business owner. You're going to start farming that out as your business grows, and if you don't have that 30% plus profit margin, you can't afford to pay somebody else to do those jobs, and so businesses fail on that account.
Well, I think what's really important to take in. So I felt like for me, $3,500 per week is the minimum I wanted one of my employees to earn me. But you've got to take into account travel and also how much you're quoting per job. So my jobs that I was doing, I wasn't doing big jobs. I wasn't taking on big commercial contracts. I didn't want them. I didn't want those ride-on jobs. I wanted the smaller residential regular mows. So I needed to be charging $2 per minute or 120 per hour or more for each of those jobs. And if I underquoted that job, then it was sort of affecting the way that I would perceive the performance of that employee, because I would go, well, you didn't make me $700 today, you only made me $600, but that might not be their fault. I could have quoted a job that was only worth $1.50 per minute. So that's why it's really important when you're in that position that you are quoting your jobs to be all the same sort of figure. And I use the area of Frankston, which is where my mowing rounds were built up, all sort of around that area. So we had daily runs in each different area, but it's a really good example. Frankston North had, the Pines area, commission housing, and people just didn't care how it was looking. They just wanted to cut. You had Frankston and Coringal, which was like middle class sort of area. A lot of families, and then you had Frankston South and Mount Eliza, which were like, really posh sort of, upper class people that, it wasn't rare to be able to see AMGs and even Ferraris and Lamborghinis in people's driveways. So within this 10 kilometre sort of area, you had to find a way to be able to quote these jobs to make sure that you were still earning $2 per minute at the job. And so my trick was in Frankston North, I would say, I'll give you a quote, and this will be a quote for catch mowing, and this will be a quote for mulch mowing. And so nearly all the customers would take on the quote for mulch mowing, but I was still able to get the job done quick enough to be able to earn that $2 per minute. In Frankston, it wouldn't be mulch mowing. A lot of them would be catch mowing, just use the customer's green bin, where in Frankston South, you're doing jobs where you're catch mowing and taking the clippings and you're focusing on their garden as well at the same time, and you're spending more time, but you're still earning $2 per minute. But that was really, really important to the success of my business, to make sure that, also just for crew morale, because they would know if a job wasn't worth doing, and they would also sort of get annoyed by the customer if they knew that it was taking too long, because they'd go, I don't want this on this list, this customer's getting it too cheap, and they would tell you straight away. So I did rely on my employees to be able to give me that feedback as well.
So that's good insight, Jim. Dan, it's evidence that you put a lot of thought into your round when you were running it, and I heard you touch on a few things there: the day rate, the per minute rate, the per hour rate, and it's great to be across all of those numbers so that you can make sure your business is hitting the numbers it needs to make. So $2 a minute, $700 a day, or $1,000 a day, $3,500 a week. Those numbers are great when you compare them up against each other, because you're doing different size jobs, I'm doing different size jobs. If we hit between $700 and $1,000 a day, even today, because you're talking a few years ago when you were doing that, 5 years ago, even today, those numbers will still mean your business is reasonably successful. Well,
those numbers were from 7.5 years ago is when I started my Jim's mowing business. So
there you go.
Those numbers I was using back then. So if franchisees aren't hitting those numbers today, there is something really, really wrong. It may just be that they're underquoting, or maybe they're just not efficient enough, or whatever it is, but that's my job to figure that out, to be able to coach them and support them to make sure that they are able to actually successfully run this business, and they're not working themselves into the ground for nothing.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business, and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money, season after season.
But I mean, with that said, not every franchisee is the same. Not every franchisee, wants to go make a squillion dollars. Some people are doing it for a family lifestyle as well. So really, at the end of the day, what you put in is what you're going to get out. So it's really up to you to decide how much you want to earn, as with any contractor and any mowing business.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there, Dan. Some people are just after beer money, and some people want to scale and outdo people like Mike Andes.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, this has been a great rabbit hole. I appreciate you entertaining me on that. But to drag that rabbit hole into the next section, as you grew your franchisor regions, you took on more and more regions. You would have found across Australia, not everybody's going to hit the $3,500 a week. Like if you're talking Alice Springs, it might be a little bit harder than if you're in a city, Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne. So no doubt you're encouraging franchisees that you speak to hit realistic numbers, but that is something that I've come across, and I'm going to chase up Mitch Blake. You know Mitch?
Yes, I know him. I sold him his business.
Mitch, if you're listening, I'm coming for you. But he's in a regional New South Wales, and I said to him in August down at the Ellie show, I said, it's got to be hard work in Dubbo and Narromine and those places where you've got franchisees to hit the same numbers the guys are hitting in the inner city in Sydney. And he said, no, that's really achievable.
It certainly is, and it's different for everyone, and that's where the idea of, where I talked about the basic principle of Frankston North, Frankston and Frankston South comes into play. Because, when I took on Northern Territory, for example, I tell you what, that really taught me a good lesson, because it doesn't rain for 6 months of the year there. So you've got to be really creative with how you bring on that work, and you've also got to be very careful as a franchisor as to how many franchisees that you bring on throughout that year to make sure they can build up those mowing rounds and they are skilled enough to be able to take on the extra type of work during that dry season. So I've never sold a franchise in Alice Springs. I mean, I could, but I haven't yet. And I would feel comfortable doing it now, knowing that I could train them on how to grow their business. I had two franchisees in Katherine. I was the first person to sell franchises in Katherine for Jim's Mowing, and those guys were earning $5,000 per week, but it's because I could teach them and show them how to build this business up. And a lot of it was to do with local area marketing in the area, and because you've got a small community, if you do one thing wrong, everyone finds out about it. Darwin is a lot about irrigation and the extra services that you can provide to those customers as well, and taking on a lot of those care agency jobs and insurance jobs is a really big, is really big for our industry there as well. So it is very different everywhere that you go. But if I see a franchisee that's struggling to hit those numbers, I'll usually turn them towards taking on the once-off jobs and those garden cleanups again, just to increase their income while they're going through either the winter period or the dry season or whatever it is. And then once they get through that period, they then start focusing on, building up that mowing round again, so that they can have. Because essentially, I want franchisees to be able to, during spring and summer, during the wet season, whatever you want to call it, do their customers every 2 weeks usually. You'll have some that are weekly, but most of them are going to be every 2 weeks. And then when you hit, usually somewhere, it depends on the part of Australia you're in, but when you hit, let's say, the end of May, early June, your customers, a lot of them, now not all of them, plenty of them will stay on every 2 weeks, especially if they're the insurance jobs. We love those jobs. But a lot of them will change their frequency to every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks. So you want to try and, coach them into every 3 weeks, but there's a lot that will go every 4 weeks. But what you do is you go, right, now your lawn mowing is every 4 weeks, but I still want to come here every 2 weeks. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a gardening session in between. So I'll still be at your place every 2 weeks, but I haven't done all your gardening through spring and summer because I'm not silly and I'm not going to take that work for myself. I'm going to do it as soon as that winter period hits. And so you go there every 2 weeks still. It's just one's gardening, one's mowing. And so you start off, you do their gutters, and then you do their mulching of their garden beds, and you do their weeding, and you do all these services, because otherwise, if you don't do them during that winter period, you won't have time during the spring and summer. And you got to make sure that your clients are aware of that as well.
Now, there are two thoughts here. One of them that I've had is you can choose to make your business follow the seasons and go, okay, I'm going to aim for $150,000 turnover a year if I'm solo, based on working harder in summer and having holidays in winter. I've done that a lot of the time, where I've just gone, all right, in winter I'm going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks off and tell my customers ahead of time, say I'll be gone for 2 weeks and I'll do your job when I get back. And that's a great time to take holidays. It's a little bit harder to take a week off. Like, you can take a week off in summer at Christmas time, but you're going to have more of a hard time catching back up again.
For anyone listening, any lawn mowing contractors, I do not recommend that you take a week off or 2 weeks off during Christmas. It is the busiest time of the year. And if you are going to do that, make sure that you've got someone that's going to caretake you around, because you're only asking for problems, because it means that you're going to have to work twice as hard before, twice as hard after, and then still try and catch up. It's an absolute nightmare. So I would say, if you're going to take a couple of weeks off, please get someone to caretake your jobs for you, especially if you know that it's longer, the type of grass is going to grow a lot quicker, like Kikuyu. So, but yeah, the best time to take your holidays is usually somewhere around that August sort of period. Either month around that, but August is usually the best time, and you're not going to have to worry usually.
But certainly, like you say, you can fill your winter up very easily and thoughtfully when you encourage your customers to let you do gardening jobs through these slower months. So, you got less mowing to do, but there's a lot of gardening jobs that most yards need to be done, and the winter is a great time to be doing that.
That's right.
So,
yep. But
it's fantastic.
You said you wanted to know a bit more about how I built up as a franchisor, because I've talked about how I coach franchisees, but not necessarily how I built it up.
Yes.
So the first region, as I said, was Brisbane, and that one cost me a pretty penny. I think I paid nearly. It was the guy selling it. There was 960 or somewhere around there, 1,000 he wanted. I couldn't afford it, so I asked Jim to buy 50%.
Yeah.
So I put in my half, Jim put in his half. It worked out really well, and we just took a 50% split of the profits. And because that worked well, because I was able to recruit new franchisees and really get the current franchisees there to get really good results, good surveys, good income, Jim had come to me with the next opportunity, which was to buy North Queensland. So I went and bought North Queensland, and I asked Jim, I said, would you mind if we do 50-50 again? I quite like it, because I knew I could buy regions quicker if I only bought, half of it as well. He agreed to it. So that was from Cairns. Oh, it was from the top of Australia, but I counted as Cairns. Down to encompassing Macca, so Townsville, Macca. And then a little while later, which would have been about 6 months later, I ended up getting Northern Territory. And then 6 months after that, I went and got, I took a bit of a different route, but I bought Southern New South Wales, which was from the Southern Highlands, Mittagong sort of area, Nowra, down to the border, which was, around Bega, sort of area, Merimbula, Pambula. So I had all that. Yeah. I went and bought regional New South Wales, which was from Broken Hill, Dubbo, Orange, Bathurst, those sorts of areas, sort of leading into the Southern Highlands anyways, going into the mountains. And then after that, 6 months later, I went and bought Central Queensland, which was from like Rockhampton down all the way through past, Sunshine Coast, north sort of area, so Noosa and Twin Waters, so all that area. So I had these big chunks, and I ended up merging them all together because there were 6 regions, and I called it Northern and Eastern Australia as one region. And that went really, really well. But the reason I was able to buy these regions was because I obviously did save a lot of money as a franchisee, and I sold businesses that would help me, increase my income to be able to purchase these other areas.
Yeah.
And so, very quickly, I think I started with 52 franchisees as a franchisor, and I had over 200 franchisees by the end of it. And at that point, that's where I went, right, do I want to go buy more regions? Do I want to look at buying other parts of Australia from Jim, or what do I want to do? And some people may know of it, but I was looking at, that's where I went, you know what, I wouldn't mind seeing if I could crack that American market. I don't know if you can remember that, Gary.
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah. And so I went, all right, well, I might have a shot at this. And the reason was, funnily enough, was because of Mike Anders, the guy that runs Augusta Lawn Care.
I published an interview with Mike 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there you go. Well, if he's listening to this, he'll remember this, because he came down to the Jim's Group national office, and me and him did a presentation together. It's on YouTube for anyone that wants to watch, and it went really, really well. Very, very smart man. But I remember saying to him, I said, mate, if you ever try and start up Augusta in Australia, I'll go start up Jim's Mowing in America. And he had a bit of a laugh and said, he wasn't ready for that, and he really just wanted to learn more about our business model, because Jim's Mowing is, believe it or not, is actually the largest mowing franchise in the whole world. He came down here to learn more about Jim's Mowing to help out his franchise. Yeah. And he cheekily, I think he put someone on in Box Hill around Melbourne for Augusta. And
I've spoken to Will down there. It's trying to get an interview with him.
When I heard that happen, that's when I went, all right, this America thing, I've said I was going to do it, and I want to do it. And so I went and spoke with Jim, and I said, hey, I want to start your brand over in Florida. It doesn't snow there, good tropical environment. It seemed to make sense to me. And he said, yep, no worries. So I went and spoke with, Jim told me that he would pay for the lawyer and legal fees of, setting up the different reports and disclosure documents and all that sort of thing. He just said, you go and organise your visa and the cost to get over there and everything. And I was just going to build up mowing rounds. So I was going to build the mowing rounds myself, get some take it and sell a franchise for it to be able to start it off. That was my idea. But I ended up having to save up $350,000 Australian to be able to get this visa to move over there. I think it was like 6 years over there or something. And I saved it up. I saved up to $350,000. I called up Jim and I said, Jim, I've got the money. I'm ready to move over there. I'm pretty serious on it. I was looking to move over at August this year. So 2025, and that's where I said, but my main goal is one day I'd like to be able to prove to you that if I do well enough with America, I want to take over Jim's Mowing. I know you've said no to me in the past, but you've offered me management, and I don't want management. I would want to be able to receive the profits of Jim's Mowing. And Jim had actually said at that point, he said, well, Dan, you don't need to go to America if that's the case, because I think that you're already ready to be able to do that. And that went, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, this is coming from Jim saying I could take over Jim's Mowing. Like, that's insane. So I was just like, well, if you're serious about it, well, let's do it. And he said, all right, well, let's set something up. And we started looking into me taking over Jim's Mowing Australia, and a couple of other people found out about it and they got interested as well. And because of that, I had to put together a few business plans and everything to prove to Jim what I would do with it. And come, what was it, November 1, which is, 9 days ago, I've officially taken over Jim's Mowing Australia as a divisional franchisor, which is, just insane to think about.
That is big news, Dan, and congratulations first off. But that is a significant change for the Jim's Group.
Yeah, huge change, because Jim's always owned Jim's Mowing since the 80s. It's always been he's owned it, and he's been the divisional franchisor for it. And so I'm the first person to actually have the rights to Jim's Mowing as a divisional franchisor.
Wow.
It's so weird when I look up my ABN online, my number, and I see Jim's Mowing Australia sitting there. I'm just like, that's so surreal. Like, just to think back, I was out there mowing lawns, even when it was just me mowing lawns by myself before I brought on any employees. I always thought geez, if I was ever in that position, you know, this is what I do and this is what I do, and because you've got a lot of time to think when you're mowing lawns. I mean, just mow in a straight line. So, but I'm in that position, and now I'm like, geez, I am so amped up. I am so ready to just give this everything I've got and really see what I can do with this. I mean, we're already the biggest mowing company in Australia, but I want to put down. I really want to just, you know, see what the potential is.
Yeah, okay. So for people who don't understand this, I find whenever something big is said in my podcast, we need to just put a pause on and go, okay, let's really make sure people understand what it was that was said. So, divisional franchisor, but you said divisional franchisors have not owned Jim's Mowing previously. So they have operated.
There's been divisional managers before, so Jim has always been the divisional franchisor, which is the person who oversees the whole division. So they're in charge of the division. So Jim has hired people to be a divisional manager before plenty of times, no worries at all. But they're not the person that is that is responsible for it. They're managing it. I'm the person to be a divisional franchisor. So if I wanted to, I could go and hire someone to be a divisional manager for me. I don't think I've got an obsession with Jim. The idea of doing it myself, but so that's where we're at. And what I've found actually since being in this role, it's been fantastic. I mean, even leading up to it, when people first found out a couple months back, I had franchisors contacting me saying, "Congratulations! You know, I thought this is fantastic for you. It seemed like a natural stepping stone for you. I wanted this to happen." You know, they knew that I was a very hard worker and, you know, had a lot of ideas and just a lot of care for it. So it was really, even people that I didn't necessarily get along with great reached out to me and just said that this is brilliant. Like, since being in this, like, I had a franchisor meeting. My first franchisor meeting, I held it last Friday, and I just said, hey, you know, this is what we're working on. And one of the issues is that the person that was the divisional manager previously, or the one prior to, we've had a couple, but over a year ago, the guy that was running it, he got rid of a lot of the discounts that franchisees were receiving from our preferred suppliers, just completely removed them from our list of suppliers. And the reason that I've been told was because they wanted to, if they didn't pay money towards getting a stall at our trade day or anything like that, or if they didn't support the brand in that sort of way, then we wouldn't support them and we wouldn't, you know, offer their discounts to our franchisees. And I looked at that and I went, that's so silly. It seems like backwards thinking to me. Like, my idea is, why don't we get more discounts for franchisees? I want to try and save money for them. I want to try and keep the money back as much as possible. And so I said that to the regional franchisors in our last meeting, our franchisor meeting, and they were all for it. They were like, it's so silly that we got rid of that. Let's get it back in play. And so I said to them, I'm only one guy, you know, I'm going to need some help if we're going to, you know, really try and improve this division. And the franchisors were all for it. They were like, yep, so I've now got these franchisors taking on, you know, responsibilities of getting our old discounts back and rebuilding that relationship with them and looking for new discounts for all our franchisees nationwide. And, you know, it's just really good to see the team come together and go, we all want the exact same thing.
So this means trailer builders, mower shops and uniform supplies, anything you can think of like that, accounting services.
That's right, yeah. So like still gives us, 17% off their products now, which is fantastic, still Australia.
Nice.
You've got Solo, the sprayers, you know, the backpack sprayers and the poison sprayers. So they're actually branding, they're actually coming out with like Jim's Mowing branded sprayers for us, and they're giving us 15% discount for Jim's Mowing and Jim's Pest Control, which is brilliant. You've got Catch Pro, so Ben from Catch Pro, he's already organised a code for us on his website where he gives all Jim's Mowing franchisees 10% off. I've been speaking...
I have a code too, just saying, if anyone wants to buy it through Aussie Lawn Stars, we have Lawn Stars 10.
That's good to know, mate. All right, there we go. I'll need to let them know that, and I'll probably add you to that list as well of providers that are giving us discounts. But I've got all these different, like Ego right now is working with me. They're going to go speak with Sydney Tool and Total Tools to be able to set something up so the franchisees can go in there and get a discount.
Nice.
I like the idea of using ego, just because I like the idea of going green and battery operated and saving money on petrol and those sorts of things. Pruners is one that's coming to us with a nationwide discount. So
awesome.
These ideas that I had when I was mowing lawns, when I was just out there pushing mowing lawns, and I was like, if I was ever in that position, this is what I'd do. I'm just like, let's put it into play. Let's do it.
That's great.
So as I said, it's really exciting, and I've found that it doesn't need to be simple. I mean, running a lawn mowing business isn't difficult. It's quite simple to be able to run a lawn mowing business once you understand the fundamentals and the basic key components of how to make it successful. And I'm looking at this role now and I'm going, well, this doesn't need to be difficult either. I can take this back to basics and focus on getting the things that really matter right. And for me, those 4 key drivers for me are, I've got making sure that we support our franchisees, making sure that we have client growth, so the brand keeps on growing, the customer base keeps on growing, making sure that we're continuing to retain our amazing franchisees as well, and also recruiting new franchisees into the brand to be able to represent the brand. So those are the 4 things, and everything I do should be based on one of those things. If we're really serious about it, those are the 4 things that we focus on.
So, after inviting Sortscape in to share how their software can help your business, we created a link for you to be able to support Aussie Lawn Stars when you join. Sortscape will save you time and effort with scheduling, quoting and reporting so you can build a more efficient business. Visit sortscape.com/lawnstars now to join, and thank you for your support.
I think what you're saying covers this, but I want to bring it up because this is what I hear from outside of the Gyms Network, and like I said, I'm an admirer of the Gyms Network, but from outside. The complaint that I hear is unserviced leads, and the answer I have heard seems to be going through Bizza. The unserviced leads will go to Bizza, but if you're the man holding all the strings, you'd be going, okay, if the jobs are going to Bizza, they're going out to Gary Ashton rather than going to my franchisees. So if there's an opportunity to put on a new franchisee, they're going to pick that up wherever there's a lot of jobs going to Bizza and go, all right, Gary's getting all these leads from Bizza, let's make sure we've got a franchisee in that area.
Yeah, so I think a big issue with that is that there's some people that look at buying a business and they think that looking at unserviced leads or anything like that is the key indicator to decide if they buy the business or not, and it's not, because a good franchisor will go out of their way to make sure that we don't have unserviced leads, or we have very minimal unserviced leads, because the worst service, and this is as simply as I can possibly put it, the worst service you can possibly give is no service at all. And that's essentially what it is. And so if you're a really good franchisor, you will find a way to make that marketing budget so that if you've already got too much work coming through and your franchisees can't keep up with it and we've got unserviced leads, you do not do extra advertising to bring on more unserviced leads. It just doesn't make sense. You're just going to upset more people. So you go, right, we need to use the advertising budget when it's actually needed, when we need the work. I cannot stand the idea of having unserviced leads. I think it's the worst thing. But if you're good at your job as a franchisor, you'll find a way to go, right, I need to bring on more franchisees to service those unserviced leads when we have them, get our franchisees to build up their mowing rounds, and then during winter when they die off, they've got their mowing round that'll get them through that winter period. They can still take on the work from the call centre, but I hate the idea of unserviced leads. I really do.
Now, there's a couple of numbers that get thrown around here, and so I'm just making up numbers here that I think there's a little bit of credibility to these made-up numbers. If we look at the ratios of interest to people, around 90% of gyms franchisees succeed really well. Around 10% of independent lawn mowing and gardening businesses succeed really well. Around one suburb, you might have 9 independent trailers running around for one Gyms trailer, and you might have a Fox and a Gyms and a VIP or something. There's a few different franchise models around, but yeah, typically speaking, if you've got a suburb where there's 10 different contractors running around, you'll have a lot of independents and you'll have 1 or 2 franchises. Predominantly they'll be Gyms because they're the biggest. So there is a lot of potential there for you to grow, Dan. And I guess that's the super question we don't expect you to answer. But do you think the Gyms Network can take the lead there and go, instead of being 10% of the market, whatever it might be, somewhere in that sort of vicinity, let's make it 20, 30, 40, or 90% of the market?
At the moment, we have in Australia, we have over 2,000 franchisees for gyms mowing. I look at that and I go, it's nowhere near enough.
The market's a lot bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And, gyms mowing is huge. We're by far the largest mowing company in Australia. There's no reason why we can't continue to grow that. And I look at it and I go, well, what do we got to do to be able to get that done? And so marketing is like a key component to that. So I've been trying to come up with like little weird ways to be able to get different demographics interested. So I come up, what was it? You would have seen the recent one. I just asked Joel to put it up last night. I created this meme and it was like the GTA 6 meme. So I created that and I was just like, that will go out and people will see it and they'll go, because Grand Theft Auto 6 has been delayed again. So I created a meme with like the 3 different faces of the Gyms Mowing logo about how it was like happy that it was going to get released in 2025, and then when they found out it was going to get released in May 2026, he was a little bit upset. In fact, I actually just flipped his smile upside down. And the one where it says that it's getting released in November 2026, where he's quite angry, but I was like, that'll hit the younger demographic. I did one a couple of months before that, which was if you remember that Coldplay concert where the CEO got caught cheating with his assistant. I created Jim's marriage counselling, and so I put that. I got Joel to put that meme up for me, and that got like 30,000 likes or something. And I was just like, isn't that insane? I was like, new people would like this sort of thing. So I'm trying to find different ways to be able to play with the marketing, just to be able to capture those different types of people. And not every ad that we put up will be like that, but I'm just like, well, Gyms Mowing is something that can cater to everyone, all age groups. We should be marketing to all different age groups.
Yeah, and I think that's worth thinking about, and I'm sure what you're saying is you have put a lot of thought into this, but the demographics seems to be split between those people who start on the basis that it's a low barrier to entry business. They have a Honda Civic hatchback already. They can throw their Bunnings mower, whippersnipper and blower in the back of their hatchback, and they've got a business, right? So $500, maybe $2,000 if they're really pinched, and they've got a lawn mowing business. But in order to start a gyms franchise, the barrier to entry is a bit higher, which means, typically speaking, it's somebody who has a little bit of cash, or they've borrowed mum and dad's cash. They've managed to get into a gyms franchise. The investment is higher, which means they're probably going to take it a little bit more seriously as well. Much more likely to treat it like a business instead of just beer money. Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot, there's a lot of people that are willing to work hard. A lot of people are willing to work hard. The issue is they start these lawn mowing businesses and they try and save money at the start, but they don't realise how much they're losing on the other end. So, because, whether you save money or make money, it's all the same in the end. So you could spend $10,000 to start up an independent lawn mowing business, get yourself a trailer, a mower, all the rest of it, and you could be up and running. And so you go, well, a Gyms mowing business costs somewhere around $30,000. So I've saved myself $20,000 here. And you go, well, have you really though? Because by the end of that year, let's say you do your first 12 months, where is the average Gyms mowing franchisee going to be with their income for that year? And then where is the average independent going to be? And for most people, not everyone, so anyone that's listening to this that, is an independent that's doing quite well for yourselves, this isn't aimed at you, but most of them aren't going to be able to get anywhere close to what a Gyms mowing franchisee earns, because we're feeding these franchisees with the work. And there's no difference between an independent or a Gyms mowing franchisee. It's just two people, and one person has decided to pay this company to use their brand to get work from them and coaching from them. And that's how I see it. And you go, well, that's all it is. That's the difference. And it's no different to an independent going, well, I'm going to chase leads from using high pages or from using one flare or from making my own website. It's all the same stuff. It's where you put your money. But I would say, 9 times out of 10, that Gyms mowing franchisee is going to be a lot better off after that first year. Yes, you may have saved $20,000 buying into it, but did that Gyms mowing franchisee make an extra $20,000 for that year? I can almost guarantee the answer is going to be yes, on average.
Well, let's talk about these differences a little bit more, and I will throw a bit of shade on the Gyms Network here. I love you. But people coming into this, a lot of the independents will not stay in business for more than 12 months. So the first factor I'm going to say there is not every one of those people are failing at business. Some of them are just doing it for a bit of beer money. They're saving up for a boat and then they stop working. Some of them are doing it just as a seasonal hobby. They might come back and do it in next season as well, right? There's a bunch of variables there. So some of those large percentage, like what is it, somewhere around 90% of them don't continue. Some of them don't continue for various reasons. The independents that succeed will often find similarities to a gyms when they start up. So they'll find, big shout out to Aussie Lawn Stars podcast, because that'll help them get success. Shout out to some of the Facebook groups that are good for independents, that'll help them get success. The thing that is missing there, and Gyms Network has this in spades, is training. So when you start a gyms franchise, like you mentioned, you get the mentorship, you get the training, you get the equipment, you get the uniforms, you get set up with systems, right? A lot of that comes down to that 6 days training and then the follow-up with the systems and the mentoring.
It's 5 days training now, but yes, a lot of it does come down to that. So you've got that initial training where you go down to Melbourne and you've got our training centre there, and you're getting fully trained from the start, and you've actually got Jim that will be there for 2 different days to be able to teach you as well. And then after you've completed that training, you go, right, you know, a lot of them will go out for a day on the road with a local franchisee, or, you know, maybe a week on the road. It depends it's completely up to them. And then after that, you've got people like myself that are coaches, essentially, that are going to be sitting there calling you every week. And when you first start, it's usually every day that I speak to new franchisees.
Nice.
Driving it home. This is how you run your business, step by step. And where are you at today? What have you done today? All right, brilliant. You've done this. Now I want you to go do this. And so you give them like little strategies here and there of like, sign up with this home care agency. Go sign up with DVO. Go sign up with whoever it is that they go, you know. And so you've got all these different strengths from myself and mistakes learned from myself that I can teach these people and go, this is what you need to do. And this is how you really succeed. And these are the fundamentals of how to build this mowing business from scratch. And so that's the difference is, you know, are you willing to pay a franchise for that sort of support and the sort of work that comes through? And a lot of the time also, this is another benefit, is that people are willing to pay a higher price using someone like Jim's Mowing over an independent. Not all the time, but most of the time, like Jim's Mowing, we expect that they'll be 20% above market value just because we've got the brand we're the biggest in the country. Everyone knows us. I mean, you can't go anywhere without seeing Jim's Mowing somewhere. So,
yeah. Now, I think once you eliminate the beer money and the cash jobs and the cowboys that are just fly-by-nighters, I think you'll still find, like you say, there's a lot of advantages to being in the Gyms Network as a franchisee. You can find some of those things outside of the Gyms Network, but the Gyms Network has them all in there as a system. So if you look at systems, and I don't mind listing these, you might want to try and keep some trade secrets here, but they're not actually trade secrets. So those systems that gyms do really well, and I like to help people find these systems without the Gyms Network, but like I said, I actually had somebody on the phone a couple of weeks ago. I said, yeah, join the Gyms Network. I really hope you do, because that's going to work, right? But the first system you guys put in place is go to the mower shop and ask for these tools. Get this trailer, get these uniforms, get this accounting system and the CRM in place so that you have those basic systems in place. And then there's a few more systems in place, like a marketing strategy, various different things. Marketing is often taken care of by the Gyms Network with the leads already, but there's more you can do. And gyms will help you get it. So if you come to me and ask me, I can tell you those things too. And I'm thinking at the moment seriously about starting up a training package for people to do outside of a franchise network. But Gyms has it in place already.
Yeah, like we have formulas that we share with franchisees, so they don't have to use them. They're there as guides, but like one of them, like let's say you're quoting a gutter cleaning job. Most of our franchisees would use the idea of $5 per linear metre to be able to figure out how much a gutter cleaning job would be worth. So you go around, you step out the house, if it's a 60-metre house, that's a $300 gutter cleaning job for a single story. So, but we've got all these different formulas and guides for quoting that'll help out all our franchisees as well. The support's there, and the network's there. Like we recruit really, really good guys into Jim's Mowing, and they all help each other out as well. Like a lot of them will even help me out. Like when I said to them, "Hey, I'm looking for discounts to give to more franchisees," you should have seen how many people reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got an idea for a nationwide discount. I've got this person I know, and they're willing to do this." That's just at my level. But like if someone breaks down and they don't have, let's say their mower, whatever, it stops working for whatever reason. A lot of the franchisee to the next suburb will go, all right, well, here you go. You can borrow my spare one if you want. Because everyone's working, within a 15, 20 kilometre radius of everyone else anyways, because they've got, they're not limited to one area. They can work wherever they like. So the franchisees from all around help each other out because they're going to see them in the street.
So Dan, the idea of having a quoting system in place like you've got there, like anybody can come up with a system like that, but you guys have worked it out in a way that's really helpful for your franchisees, and you don't mind sharing that. That's great. When people join up with the gyms network, those systems are the most basic ones. Some of the systems that and I know somebody else looked at doing this, if I want a swims document in place, and I go outside of a franchise, I'm looking at a couple of grand.
We've already got that all set up. It's in our software. All you go is you go onto your online and it's all sitting there. All the templates, everything.
Yeah. If I want ChemCert, that's another expense. There's a bunch of things that I can do or I can recommend to somebody who's starting solo. Gyms Network has a lot of that built into their systems. Or if it's not in a system specifically that you can access as being in the Gyms Network, your mentor is going to say, here you are, I'll hold your hand, point you in the right direction, and it's done.
Yeah, we do like group, so like May 1st every year, for example, we put it out to all franchisees that they can go do a Cert 3 in horticulture if they like.
Nice.
Each year we say, here's a Chem Cert that you can go complete, this is when it starts. So, landscaping courses, whatever it is. So we send that out to our franchisees and say, if you want to be able to upskill yourself and become better and take on more services, we recommend you do these things. So
then it sounds to me like I've got good reason to promote the Gyms Network, because everything you're describing there is setting people up to succeed.
As I said, there's no difference between an independent and a Gyms Mowing franchisee. It's just that the Gyms Mowing franchisee has decided to spend a portion of their money to be able to get this support, these systems, the work, the brand, all that sort of stuff, to be able to build their mowing business. So, and that's what I try and get across to them. It's like, do you think it's worth spending this amount of money? And the fees are usually on average about 10 grand per year for a Gyms Mowing franchisee for the franchise fees. And I look at that and I go, well, you pay your first buying price of 30 grand or whatever it is that you're buying for. Yeah. You pay 10 grand a year in fees. But for me, it's always going to seem like this in my head. It just seems like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you do it if you know that it's going to be easier for you and you're going to have extra support there and extra work there? It's just, yeah.
I look at it like this, because people ask me, and my answer is, you can join gyms, you can join Fox, you can join VIP, you can start independent. If you join gyms, it's a walk in the park once you make that decision. Like, yes, it's going to cost you a buy-in and it's going to cost you some fees that are ongoing, yes. But the business success rate, if you follow those systems, works really well. If you want to find those systems on your own as an independent, you can still succeed and have a similar success rate, but you've got to find the systems. You've got to know that you're looking for systems. How many people start up a business without Dan holding their hand, and they know what systems to put in place already?
They have not
a lot.
They don't know. There's no, they've got to speak to figure it out. When you join that, the Gyms Mowing franchise, you've got someone like myself or the other coaches or the other franchisors, the great team and the great network we've got, to be able to go step by step, hey mate, this is what you should be doing next. I want to make sure that you succeed because it's in my best interest, because the more you succeed, the more work you're going to take on from us, the more that we're going to make, the more years you're going to stick around, and a good chance you're going to be able to help us recruit new people into our brand as well. So, for me, I just think it's a bit of a win-win.
Well, and I think finishing on that note, a good win-win. I know a lot of gyms franchisees listen to my podcast, and I am focused on reinforcing the idea of having systems in place that work. And the Gyms Network is focused on reinforcing systems that work, and that's a model that builds a successful business. So I'm happy to have as many people as I can listen to my podcast, because I'm going to help put them in the right direction. And for those that want the support of a franchise model, I always will say that's a great option and go look into it. For those who want to go independent, I'm like, well, you need to be listening to my podcast all the time to get these systems in your head.
Yeah.
So, Dan, it's big news that you're taking over as the divisional franchisor owner.
Yep. Certainly.
And yeah, I'll be looking to see that 2,000 trailers double over the next 5 years.
We'll get to 4,000. We'll get to 4,000, but as I said, I just think that it's proof that hard work pays off. You know, I was a high school dropout. I was actually expelled from my first high school.
Wow.
You know, terrible education. I was you know, one of the worst kids in school, and I just went, right, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to mow as many lawns as I possibly can. The more lawns I mow, the more I'm going to make. And now I'm in this position where I just have this mindset of the harder I work, the more it's going to pay off for me. So I can't wait to see what I do with Jim's Mowing, and hopefully I do everyone proud.
Look forward to it. I'll be cheering you on, and I'll give you a call every now and then to see how it's going.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks for your time on Sunday afternoon. I had the pleasure of getting out on my motorbike this morning. We got to weave that into every podcast. So it's been a good Sunday, and thanks for your time again.
No worries. Take it easy, mate.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.